Have your attention, please. So it's 6 o'clock. We'll bring this meeting to order.
But I came in the back way.
Since this is there are seats up front, there's seats on the side, anyone who needs a place to sit down. So this is a meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Just to remind everyone, it is being recorded by Area 58. It's also being live streamed on YouTube. In case you want to tell your friends at home to watch it, they can. Thank you all for coming tonight. In case anyone was confused on any level, we're not going to vote on anything tonight. The purpose of tonight's meeting is informational, and it's two-way informational. So from the Board of Selectmen and the Zoning Board of the Bylaw Review Committee, we will provide for you what the 3A MBTA housing issue is and a proposed solution. And we'll also expect and ask for any questions and comments you folks might have. On that score, there's a sign-up sheet. There's two sign-up sheets working their way through the crowd. One is up here, and there's another one somewhere else. I'll collect those towards the end of the presentation, which should take maybe 20 minutes or a half hour. And I'm going to use those sign-up sheets as the menu for people to talk. So I'm just going to go start at the top and work my way down. If you do have a question and you aren't on the sign-up sheet, we won't get to you until the end. If you're on the sign-up sheet, I guarantee you we will ask you what comments and questions you might have, and I'm going to do it like one right after the other. All right, so just so as an introduction, we have here tonight the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Pratt, Mr. Seelig, myself, John Bruno. To my left is Jason DeRocher from the Old Colony Planning Council. He's helped us with some of the presentation material. Mr. Haddad is our town administrator. Mr. Huxham, to his left, is town council. And on the other side here, we're lucky tonight to have both Senator Mike Brady and also Representative Kathleen Lenatra. Again, the purpose of tonight's meeting is as a public discussion. We won't be voting on anything. You will get the chance to vote in December when we have our special town meeting, but for tonight, it's merely a matter of discussing what is going to be on the ballot. We'll provide information, listen to input and questions. As I mentioned before, the way this procedure is going to work, I'm going to just give you a short introduction as to what the circumstance and what our proposed solution is. We have some comments from both Senator Brady and Representative Lenatra, and then Jason DeRocher will go through a slide presentation that will explain in better detail the MBTA community zoning requirements and also show you the maps and all for what we're proposing as far as a solution. We'll have questions and answers, and again, I just ask you to hold on to your questions until the end so that we can get through the presentation first and get the information from this side out before we start going in different directions. So what we're here to deal with is a statute passed a couple of years ago by the legislature. If you see the signs, it says 3A. It's really Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 3A, and it is we'll be calling it the MBTA housing law. The housing statute requires towns that are identified as MBTA communities, which Halifax is, to vote before the end of this year, before the end of December, which is why we have to have that special town meeting, on zoning a parcel of property within a certain distance of the train station, approximately a half a mile, that is going to have multi-family, multi-unit housing as a matter of right. Meaning, if someone owns that property, they don't have to get any special permits or anything to put in multi-family housing. The statute, which probably everyone has heard about and may not understand entirely, but also has penalties to it, which you will hear about in terms of a restriction on grant that can come from the state. There's also some press that's right now in the courts with the Attorney General trying to force communities to either adopt such a zoning area or to have someone do it for them. So that's the circumstance that we're faced with. The zoning bylaw, oh, I forgot to introduce, I'm sorry, the zoning bylaw review committee, Jerry Joy, Frank Johnson, Jim Walters are up front. They've been working with myself about a year or so to try to figure out the issue and also to come up with whatever our options might be. And so we have come up with an option, and it's really two options. You can either vote no on what we're going to propose, in which case we have to deal with the state and their proposed penalties, or we have an option that we think is going to satisfy, that we know will satisfy the state since we have preliminary approval, and also will have as least effect as possible on Halifax. And our proposed solution will be to create a overlay zoning district in the area of the Twin Lakes condominium development. Basically, the Twin Lakes condominium development, which has been in existence for over 40 years, is a multi-family, multi-unit development. It already is that. The zoning district that we're proposing will encompass all of Twin Lakes and also a parcel of property between Twin Lakes and the railroad track, which is referred to as the Garden Company land. We think that the Twin Lakes property is pretty much already developed, so it's not like there can be anything else to go in there. And then you'll see on the map that the the garden property has a kind of limited area where you can put anything. We've already sent this to the housing group that will ultimately have to agree with our proposal. They've already given us a preliminary approval on it. So it's our view that regardless of how you feel about the statute itself, whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, what we can do in Halifax, given our circumstance, is change the zoning in an area and basically have it reflect what is already there, and we're in compliance. So that's what our proposal will be.
We were told that was conservation land when I bought into Twin Lakes.
Ma'am, I asked you, please. What we're trying to do here is have a civil discussion, okay, on a business-like level. People yelling from the audience aren't doing that, so would you please not do that? If you want to make a comment, get your name on the sign-up sheet, and you will definitely be called on, or you can wait until that's all done, all right? So it doesn't help to interrupt and move in the wrong directions here. All right, so with that being said, we'll turn ourselves to Senator Brady and Representative Lenatra, and they were going to just offer us a few comments on this proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Saligan. My name is Mike Brady. I've represented the town of Halifax for several years, along with Representative Kathleen Lenatra, and my main mission tonight is to listen to the residents. It's up to you, the residents, to decide which direction you want to go in. And again, I'm here to listen to your input and concerns. And this law was put in under the Baker administration, and it was supported by the legislature back several years ago. And there's about 60 communities that have gone forward and supported this, and there's several other communities that are still weighing out the pros and cons on the whole matter. So, but my main thing tonight is to listen to the residents. I want to thank you all for showing up tonight.
Yes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Kathy Lenatra. I'm here with Senator Brady as well, but I do want to thank Jason from OCPC and the Select Board and your town administrator for the several meetings that we've had to get tonight together. And again, we're here. We're not here to influence. We're not here to give you, any advice. We're just here to get the information for you, so when you do vote, you can vote with all the information. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we have a slide presentation that will explain in a little bit better detail than my summary exactly what the MBTA community zoning requirements are, and also what our proposed resolution is. Jason? Oh, you probably need this.
Thank you. Yes, I'll need the microphone. I've been told I have an Irish whisper, so I might be able to get to the back of the room, but the microphone probably helps for the folks who are streaming it online. So, good evening. My name is Jason DeRozier, and I am the Senior Planner for Housing and Public Engagement at Old Colony Planning Council. Our goal for this evening, which has been said a couple of times, is really to develop the shared understanding and provide information on what the MBTA Communities Law is and how it applies to Halifax. I might interchange or switch between MBTA Communities and 3A. It means the same thing, just so you all know when I'm going through it what I'm referring to. So, in the hopes of having a productive and fruitful dialogue, want to start off by saying what's in scope for the meeting and what we're here to sort of like talk about. It's the definition of the 3A law, what it is, discussion of the specific 3A district for Halifax and what the process is moving forward. Out of scope for this evening is debating whether Halifax should comply with the law. Again, this is just an information session, a conversation. You all will have the opportunity to express if this is something that you support or not at the special town meeting, and so we want to make sure that we're here having a civil discourse around what it is, what it's not, and what the potential impacts will be for Halifax. So just a quick agenda for this evening, just so you know what we're going to be covering. First will be the overview of MBTA communities or the 3A zoning requirements, reviewing Halifax's specific zoning district for 3A, looking at Halifax, some of the data, some of the metrics, and then a bulk of the conversation will be around questions and discussion. So for anyone who doesn't know Old Colony Planning Council or have not had the pleasure to meet as of yet, Old Colony Planning Council, or OCPC, is a public agency tasked with supporting 17 municipalities within the Old Colony region, plus 6 additional area agency on aging communities. We assist with housing, economic development, transportation planning, comprehensive planning, environmental and sustainability planning, GIS mapping, and more. I also want to reiterate that OCPC did not write the law or the regulations for 3A. We're just helping MBTA communities in our region, in this case Halifax, find ways that they can reach compliance, which the town is as of right now, and get you to a point where you can vote on it at your special town meeting. So I'm sure you all know where you are, but on this is sort of like Halifax is highlighted, which, you know, as you can see, Halifax sits amongst many other communities that are going through the same thing that you're going through right now. Nearly 80 communities out of the 177 that are covered by the law have already rezoned to comply with it, which is about 45% of the municipalities that are required to. Within the OCPC region, Abington, Bridgewater, Easton, Pembroke, Plymouth, Stoughton, and Whitman have complied. There's another 5, including Halifax, that have it on their warrants for a special town meeting for the fall. There's a few basic requirements for Halifax under the state guidelines. First, the town will zone for multifamily as of right, which approximately 15 units per acre, within a half mile of a commuter rail station, subway station, ferry terminal, or bus station where possible. For Halifax, 40% is required to be within a half mile of the commuter rail station, since you are a commuter rail community. The zoning district must be of reasonable size, and there will be no age restrictions or limits on unit sizes, number or size of bedrooms, or number of occupants. So the law is built around this thing called unit capacity, and I'm going to explain what that is. However, one common misconception about the MBTA Communities Law and the unit capacity is this is not a housing production target. It's only a zoning exercise the town does not have to produce units, it just has to zone to allow housing production. Now, I know the conversation is going to be, if you zone for it, development will come, and that's certainly the case in certain communities. However, it might not be the case in others. And when we go over where the zoning district is for Halifax, there's a lot of constraints with where the zone will be that will limit the potential development that could come from that zoning parcel. But I just wanted to flag that right up front. So if you can see the tables underneath, the way that the state came up with their numbers was a little bit of a math problem, so to speak. So the 750 units that you might have heard, the unit requirement, comes from your 2020 housing units within the census. So all the housing units in Halifax, there are 3,107 of them. 750 is 24% of those 2020 housing units. So that's really how it came up with the number. A majority of the communities within the OCPC region have 750 as their target, with the exception of Brockton as a city, has to do 2,100, I think, and Whitman, where I live, has to do 868. Flip my paper. So just a couple of things that are important to note. First, the law does not require that multifamily housing be built. The law only requires towns to zone for multifamily housing so that it can be built in select areas. It does not matter what has or will be built. All that matters is the underlying zoning. If anything gets built, the actual density may be less than 15 units per acre, just because of constraints, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. 3A is not an affordable housing law either. There's a lot of confusion, I think, sometimes between 3A or MBTA communities and 40B. Both are housing policies, housing legislation, but they seek to do very different things. One is zoning only. 40B, as you know, is an affordable housing, specifically affordable housing legislation. The law does not require communities to pay for any infrastructure to support housing development. This will be said again a little bit later, but if you zone for the housing, you do not have to do any upgrades to your infrastructure. If your infrastructure does not support 200 units, you're not going to be able to get those 200 units because the infrastructure doesn't support it. Talk about that a little bit later again. And then the law does not override the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act or Title V, which is the septic. So I want to spend a little time talking about what does 15 units per acre look like, because gross density and thinking about 15 units per acre can be an abstract concept for many people. I will tell you, before I got into planning, gross density, minimum lot sizes, lot coverage, like all of these things didn't make sense to me either. But it takes some time to understand how these sort of things come together and what they look like. So really trying to boil this down into real life examples in terms of like what 15 units per acre actually looks like. So this is a sketch of actually 17 units per acre. So as you can see, there's a lot of duplexes. There's an internal courtyard with parking, some trees. The next slide shows, additional 15 units per acre with parking on street, some commercial space, and various densities, although none of them are what you think of in terms of like urban development, but maybe somewhat denser than what you're used to in somewhat of a suburban or rural environment. This is an image of Burrell Street in Swampscott. This is 15 units per acre. A lot of these are duplexes. Some are larger single families. This is 15 Florida Street in Dorchester. Similar sort of scale, similar size. Very mature street trees there with a median. And then Electric Avenue in Somerville. Again, some triple deckers, some duplexes. Now, I will say that Somerville, Swampscott, and Dorchester are not Halifax. However, the scale of development and the scale of buildings are not out of scale with some neighborhoods in Halifax today. And I'll show you particularly where. So I did bring a laser pointer so I could try to point this out with the monitors in front of me. Doesn't do me any good. But this is data that comes from the assessors. And what it shows is, if you can see it, is gross density across Halifax. So, and I can, if anyone signs up and you want this data, I can certainly send it to you. But you will see, particularly around the Montponset Pond area, there are units there currently, single-family homes, there currently that have a gross density of 15 units per acre or higher. Because you have smaller lot sizes and somewhat mid-sized to larger homes, it ends up in the aggregate to zone out to more than 15 units per acre in some areas. That's a zoomed-in map. If you can see the darker orange areas are even red, that's 15 units to 20 units per acre. So just to show you in terms of scale, this is a home on Plymouth Street. It's a 3-family. It has 3 units. It's parcel acreage. The acreage that this home sits on is 0.28. Its unit per acre parcel density is 10.61. This is 204 Twins Lake Drive. It's 102 units. The parcel acreage is 14.86. The overall units per acre or parcel density is 6.86. So the parcel unit size, the units per acre within more homes on larger sort of parcels is less than a 3-family. Whereas this one here is 6 Bow Street. It's a single family. There's 1 residential unit. The parcel acreage, or the acreage that it sits on, is 0.06 acres. So its parcel density or units per acre ends up being 17.82. Just to sort of put into perspective and size. And again, after tonight's conversation, I don't mind sticking around and talking to folks and sort of like how this works. So we're in Halifax that we're talking about. So for here, I'm going to pass it off to Cody.
Thank you, Jason.
Before Cody does that, there is a sign-up sheet. One of them's up here, one of them's floating around. If you would please, if you know you want to say something, please put your name on the sign-up sheet, and I will go down the sign-up sheet for right in order. Thank you.
There's also seats up front. There are empty seats, guys, if you don't want to stand in the back. If you want to come in and see and hear better, there's seats up here.
Very good, thank you. Thank you all for coming out. I'll reiterate what Jason had said. All of this information will be available online after the meeting. There's printouts of this, and if there's any questions, we have a diverse group on the panel up here, but if for some reason we do not have an answer to your question, we will make sure we follow up with you after the meeting so we can provide that for you. So Jason's done a nice job of providing what the MBTA zoning law is on a general level, what it looks like, density, but I think really what's important here and why you're all here is what are we talking about in Halifax. So you'll see the area highlighted in yellow. This is the proposed overlay district that we're discussing for Halifax and will be on the warrant in December. It's made up of 4 parcels. I'll show a few more pictures that might be a little bit easier to understand. But 4 parcels, 3 of them are Twin Lakes, and one of them is, like Mr. Bruno said, the former Halifax Garden Company. This is a little bit of a better image. It's the satellite image. So again, those 4 parcels, the acreage is there. It's about 13 acres for the first parcel, 25 for the next, 109.04, and those are the 3 that are made up of Twin Lakes. And then that 47 3/4 approximately is that Halifax Garden Company. And one thing that's really important, and I want to highlight again, is it's not about what gets built that would make us comply with this law. Is what the compliance is what we zoned for. And so questions have come up, I've heard from residents, well, a lot of it's wet, how can you build on that? Could this, if this passes, could it result in overriding the Wetlands Protection Act or Title V. No, those things do not change. Zoning does not change that. It doesn't matter what zoning any municipality changes. You cannot override the Wetlands Protection Act or Title V. So this shows the wetlands of those parcels. What you'll notice is, as far as the Twin Lakes parcels, most of the developable land where there's not wetlands are already developed, which means there can be no further development there. There is some potentially developable land in the northern portion where the Halifax Garden Company is, and that would be anything that's not highlighted in any of the colors there. So now the proposed bylaw, there are printouts in the back of the room, which is the actual bylaw, not the mapping. And just to go over what that looks like, it's multifamily housing as of right. I already mentioned it must comply with other bylaws and code. As of right means it would go through a site plan review through the planning board, but no sort of special permit or variance through the zoning board of appeals would be required. One portion that the zoning bylaw review committee has recommended is, and the state allows, is anything, any development with 10 or more units, that 10% of those units are considered affordable, which would require a deed restriction, and it would be affordable in perpetuity. In addition, in this bylaw, there would be the possibility of mixed-use development, so maybe some commercial space on the first floor of the developments. Again, not a requirement, but it's something that could happen. A good example of this is if you're familiar with Hanson and the MBTA station over there. There's been a couple of new housing projects going on, and on the first floor there is some mixed-use development. There's a coffee shop, a hair salon, so something like that could hypothetically apply here. And that is limited to retail space, personal services, a restaurant, a cafe, office, professional, medical, dental, artist studios, no more than 5,000 square feet. And now dimensional standards for this bylaw. So it's not just a carte blanche. There'd be a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet, maximum height of 2.5 stories. Would be 2 spaces per unit for the parking. Setbacks, there would be a minimum of 30 feet for the front, 20 feet for the sides and rear. And then for every dwelling unit that's built, there would have to be 10,000 square feet on that lot. So if someone were to come in and build a 15-unit building, right, they would have to have 150,000 square feet, which is, approximately, let's say 40,000, yeah, so 3 acres. Maximum building coverage on the lot would be 25%, and then they have to keep at least 40% of the land as open space. And then I will turn it back over to Jason for some more just general MBTA zoning.
So when Cody showed you these slides in terms of like where the district is, sort of like 10,000 foot view, this is the land. However, most of it is excluded because it has restrictions, or it's wetland, or there's other sorts of constraints that would allow for development. I think what Halifax is trying to do with this MBTA zoning district is first comply with sort of state requirements, but also because it is Twin Lakes, which is already multifamily housing, which exists as non-conforming, because Halifax doesn't have multifamily zoning. You are legalizing a non-conforming use by sort of putting this overlay over Twin Lakes, and you're getting sort of what's what I'm looking for? Credit for having these units within that zoning district already without having to build a single unit. So looking at the compliance deadlines, since Halifax is a commuter rail community, there's 71 of them out of the 177. Compliance deadline is 12/31/2024. Within the OCPC region, we have 2 adjacent small towns, West Bridgewater and Plimpton. So they have until the end of next year, 2025, to work out their process. I only have a couple more slides, and then we'll open it up for conversation, so please bear with me. So we've heard and we've we've all heard about what happens if communities do not comply with the requirements that have been set up by the state. If at any point the state determines that an MBTA community is not in compliance, that community will not be eligible for funds from all of those sort of funds that are listed on the side of that slide are the grants that are at risk for non-compliance. However, I do want to say or preface this by saying that it's all discretionary funding and discretionary grants, so there are things that are not listed on this slide that could also be not provided if non-compliance. And what that means is that all discretionary grants, all discretionary funding goes in front of the governor's office for signature. That includes public safety grants, that includes COA funding, or certain COA funding, and that also includes library funding. And so just because it's not on this list at this current point in time, doesn't mean that there couldn't be something else that's withheld or not funded, just because we don't have that information yet. So how has Halifax used these grants in the past? I'm not going to read all of these. Halifax has used some green communities grants to fund pump systems, weatherization, and administrative assistance in town facilities, and $20,000 to fund weatherization, heat pump systems, and administrative assistance for town facilities. There was MVP grant, or municipal vulnerability planning grant, community compact IT grant to fund implementation of an online licensing and permitting. What's at risk for non-compliance moving forward? And so, in speaking with Cody, there's a number of grant applications that are out there that could be impacted. MassWorks program, approximately $1 million to redesign and construct the intersection of routes 58 and 106. The Community Compact Best Practices program, approximately $50,000 to provide technical support to the town's form of government study, and approximately $50,000 to update the town's master plan, which has not been done in over 10 years. A rural and small town development grant, approximately $250,000 to assist in the design, engineering, and permitting of town buildings to address ADA accessibility requirements. And a land use planning grant, approximately $30,000 to update the town's open space and recreation plan to allow for further grant opportunities that create open space and recreation spaces. So just in terms of next steps, the overall process, so we're at the beginning of this sort of on-ramp, off-ramp, however you look at it, with the town forum. There will be a planning board hearing coming up, largely to be determined between October and November. I welcome the opportunity to meet with folks, grab a coffee, talk with folks about this if there's any remaining questions. It's largely to be determined because, although I would welcome the opportunity, I'm not saying that you will. So, just sort of just putting it out there. And then December 16th is the special town meeting, and then December 31st would be the deadline to submit the state district compliance application with the adopted map and bylaw. So now we're going to do Q&A, which will be moderated by John. But before we do, just some ground rules, I suppose, for the discussion. Obviously, speak clearly, state your name and address for the record. We all commit to acting and speaking in a way that is respectful to one another. Please limit your questions and/or statements to 2 to 3 minutes, and try not to repeat a question that has already been asked so that we can accommodate everyone who would like to speak. The town and OCPC staff, i.e. me, will try to answer all technical questions. If there are any technical questions that none of us up here are able to answer, I will find the answers for you as long as you're signed in, and I will send it out to everyone who's signed up, just so you have all of the answers that you're looking for tonight. And then this is my contact information. I'll leave it up here for you all.
All right, thank you, Jason. Can you just grab the other one? It's right there.
Do you want me to leave it in case people?
Oh, all right. Is everybody signed up who has already decided they wanted to speak? Yes? Okay, so if you haven't signed up, please do, so I can make sure I get your name called. All right? We have a new list that's not up there. If you haven't signed up yet?
No, I just have one thing. If we could just elaborate on the coloring of the wetlands, there's different colors there, and what they mean.
Cody, why don't you go back over that? There you go.
It's different types of wetlands, so some are dense forest wetlands, some are just open wetlands, so there's a Mass DEP key. I can certainly get that up as the questions go to give you the exact categories of wetlands.
Okay, so the list I have to start with here is Joseph Faber. You come on up. If you have questions for any particular part of this group, I'm going to ask you to ask me, and I will get you an answer so that we can not get into debates back and forth. Again, it's informational. We want to hear what you folks have to say, and we want to answer questions if we're able to.
Well, that was a good Disney presentation, good sales pitch. You didn't show nothing like the projects in Boston or anything like that with graffiti on it, but look good. Keep that in mind. Well, Mike's probably low, right?
Yeah, you got to get right into that.
All right.
There you go.
I said, thank you for the Disney presentation.
Okay.
There was nothing that showed anything with graffiti or anything like that in the projects. Okay. Page 9. It says commuter rail. Percentage of total homes, 15%. Why are we using 25%?
What are you referring to on the slides?
No, it's on the handout from the state.
Is that the bylaw?
Page
proposed-
9.
Proposed bylaw wording?
Now, let me go back to the headline here. Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities.
I'm not sure what handout you're referring to.
That's the guidance from the state. I know what you mean.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, can you answer the question? All right, we'll get you an answer.
Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
On the page I'm looking at, it says percentage of total housing units. Commuter rail community. It says 15%. You're using 24, 25%.
I'm going to come up and take a look because I think you're not reading the whole thing. I think there's a little bit above that text. I just want to make sure I have the full picture.
Come on out.
So the 15% is the percentage of dwelling units that is required under the MBTA zoning law. Now, what are some of the other numbers that are there?
25? 10?
For which one?
For rapid transit.
Yep. So those are communities that are serviced by subways, and that's largely what Milton is sort of going through the court process for and
I don't care-
determining.
I don't care about
Okay.
Milton. I'm asking about Halifax.
Yes. And then what are the other numbers there? Just so everyone has the info.
Adjacent community,
What's that number?
that's going to be 10. That's like anybody that doesn't, on the boundary of our town.
Yes.
10.
Anyone who's not directly serviced by an
I get
MBTA.
it.
Yep.
An adjacent small town, 5%.
5%. So they're even at what's what I'm looking for? I don't want to say lesser degree, but so the numbers, given the intensity of service by the MBTA, that is the percentage that's given to it. So the neighborhoods that are serviced by more rapid frequent transit are higher. So that number boils down to the 15 units per acre that is being proposed this evening.
All right.
If I step in?
No,
I think I may be able to provide
Wait a minute.
some clarification.
Well, when you go to the other page, when it talks about Halifax, commuter rail,
Yes.
it says 3,000 on my glasses, but 300, you're looking at 750 units.
Yes.
That's a 24, 25%.
That's,
It
yes.
should be less than that if it's going to 15%.
No, so if you remember, was the clicker?
Well,
Sorry, I'm going to Sorry to give everyone whiplash. Going back to the beginning. I forgot my glasses, so, wait. So, I stated what the 2020 housing units were in your census for 2020, which was approximately 3,100 plus 7, so 3,107. The 750 is 24% of the 2020 housing units, and so I think the numbers end up what confuses some people. I think this is being recorded, but I think the state did themselves somewhat of a disservice by putting this out without doing a lot of process beforehand. But this is the situation that we're all in, so we'll try to sort of get through it the best we can together. So in terms of the important numbers, I think that are important to know is where that 750 came from, which again is a math problem. It's you know, a percentage of your overall housing stock that's currently here. And then what you were referring to is sort of acreage and sort of how it ends up getting built.
No, not really. It's right here, 15%.
So
Anyways.
the guidelines further state that it's either 15% for a commuter rail community like Halifax,
Right.
or that 50 acres, which we're required to do, with 50 units per acre, which is 750 units. And the guidance says that you will take the,
Lesser.
by taking the larger number. Is what the-
Okay, so-
I'm reading the guidance. It says by taking the larger number. So that's where the 750 comes from, which Jason says that it equals out to being 24%. So the calculation isn't the 24%. We get the 750 by that 50 acres, 50 units per acre, which is 750, and that equals 24% of Halifax's year-round housing stock.
Okay, so it's not 15%. This is wrong. Okay.
No, it's 24%. If it's 15% or that 750, whichever is more.
Okay, I only have a little time. All right, so you measured a radius of a half mile from the MBTA, John. What's the total acreage in that half-mile radius?
Well,
I don't have the total half-mile radius acreage, but I can tell you the proposed overlay district is approximately 194 acres.
Okay.
we don't have to fill up the circle.
I know.
Right. We just have to,
So you went to the northeast a little bit, and then you stopped. And there's
on
another
that-
lot of land
on the
there.
map?
Yeah, on the map.
yeah, I think the
I
reason,
I looked it up in the GIS. The next guy that owns the next lot of land, he's in the town hall working. Alan Diaz. You stopped at his boundary line, didn't you?
I don't know.
Well, you did.
I can tell you the reason that these parcels were selected was the zoning bylaw review committee took into account the concerns that the residents have with this requirement, and ultimately looked at it as if we can reach paper compliance with the Twin Lakes, which ultimately it's, I'm not going to say it couldn't be built, but it would be very difficult for someone to build within Twin Lakes because they would have to effectively purchase 220 units at, $300,000 to $400,000 per unit. That's $66 to $88 million. Go in, clear the land, and then pay to build the new development. It could happen. I'm not going to say it can't.
I don't
And
think-
then the other parcel was the one that directly abuts the commuter rail station. So the thought was to just do all of that and limit the chance of development in taking into consideration what the feedback has been from the
Yeah,
community.
well, the Twin Lakes won't count because it's not 15 units per acre.
But it doesn't matter what's
doesn't
built.
have to be.
What
And the
matters
other
is
thing
that we
is-
zone for it.
The other thing is, it's not going to cost the taxpayers anything with infrastructure. That's what the law says. So they're going to have to get their own well water, their own septic system designs, and what about their own school system?
So any developer who would want to come into Halifax to build anything within the boundaries of this zoning, whether it's septic, sewer, public water, whatever, sewage treatment, that would come out of their pockets. The town is not required to help with a dime of public infrastructure. That would be up for the developer. So if a developer proposes something, but can't come up with the money or doesn't have the money to do the infrastructure, then the project won't work because the infrastructure is not there to support it. In terms of school, and I do have the data, I looked at 31 years of school enrollment data in Halifax, and there has been a steady decline in school enrollment in Halifax, not counting Silver Lake, but in Halifax since 1993. I have the numbers from DESI. I can show them to anyone who wants to see them.
So I have a big list of
Okay.
people.
All right, if I get time, I may come back up if you want to have me.
Sure, why don't
All
we
right.
move on to the next one?
Thank you for
Joe.
voting on something you didn't read.
So the next one on the list is Van Donnelly. Van Donnelly. And if you have a question, let me know, or if you have a comment.
I definitely have an Irish whisper, so you'll hear me. One of the couple of questions that I have, I'm also on 201 Cranberry Drive in Halifax. I think my NEMA numbers are showing it that in the state, multifamily housing is rising. Multifamily housing is rising at about 18% a year, and single family is also growing in double digits. So the need for this doesn't make any sense unless we're looking to put illegal aliens down there on the train tracks. So the issue becomes a couple of things for the town folk. Everybody got up here is telling us all this great stuff that we have to do. Who up here is telling us what the benefits if we don't? Okay, the benefits if we don't are, which we already have problems with funding in the schools. Now you figure one person in each apartment down, you got 750 people going into the school system here. We're gonna get an override. We're gonna have to pass this to pay for police, fire, and all of this, to help out the governor bail her ass out. So this is getting a little bit, the people in the town are getting pissed. This is the state that threw the tea in the heart. We've said it before. And this is, I'm an Irishman. Tell me to do something and I'll spend $100,000 to fight it, okay? The issue is you should have asked these towns what they wanted to do here on a friendly way to do this. Coming to the towns and saying, take it or leave it, my opinion is we leave it, okay? And we,
Folks, again, that's not helpful if you clap, if you boo, if you do those things. It's just not helpful because, again, it interrupts the speaker's flow, and it's unfair to everyone. So please, if you would just let's listen to what everybody has to say.
If we look at the area down, you're talking about might have retail and all this. If we really need housing down, what the hell are we doing with retail, right? The issue to this is, if you rezone this, now you're gonna classify part of Twin Lakes under this zoning. Okay, now are they affected by the housing that comes out? Well, you could put illegals in their buildings, now you come under the MBTA zoning. So that's an issue that somebody needs to answer here, because if you're gonna, your housing on the 40B, most likely is gonna be used under that same zoning district if you wanna get housing in there. And the idea that you've taken out the amendments here for age restrictions in this property, everyone knows what's going down with that. There's nobody's flies on many people in the town. So the issue is, you tell me this is for veterans and elderly, I'm signing me up tomorrow, okay? But this isn't, and we all know it. And you're building enough multifamily housing in the state to support what's happening. Just shut the door on the southern border, and you'll be fine. So that people, I can tell you that people can see what's happening, and they're gonna try to get the, and when they're gonna vote this crap out, and the people that support it, and it's really rising, and you're causing this because you come up here and you tell us all of these things we must do. But you're not telling us if we don't do this, what's the governor gonna do? Start pissing off all the people in the state that vote for her? God bless her, bring it on, okay? Because
Well-
I'll tell you, it's not worth it if we recall her.
Okay.
Just the issue, and I'm just saying it. So I mean, it's not fair to the people here to go to town and demand something of them. And that, you take that back to the governor's office. If they do this, they should come here and ask us, would we like to do this, and how would you like to do it? Rather than say, you do this, or else I'm gonna take this and that from you, which we paid for already. Now we hear today, there's 900, the millionaire's tax, they're gonna take all the money out of there to pay for illegal aliens. She's in trouble, and she's trying to bail her butt out, and now we all gotta pay it. Just like every other tax that's been coming down the road here, and it's all headed here. And the people in Twin Lakes shouldn't have, I don't live there, but I'll tell you what, they're from our town. And I support them just like I would anyone else. And the issue is they shouldn't have to deal with it, because I think you're gonna put people in Twin Lakes under that 40B. Those are the questions I got, but.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, I'm going to mispronounce it, I apologize. Andrew Pongaret? So I'm sorry.
Congrats.
Thank you.
So maybe you can help me with my math. Correct me if I'm wrong. 750 units, right? Unlimited bedrooms, unlimited occupancy. Is that correct?
Well, I mean,
You
there's,
just said yes.
no, someone behind you said this, but
Okay.
there's no restriction, so what it is that there's no restrictions on bedroom sizes because they don't want just a bunch of like studios or one
Okay,
bedrooms going.
so unlimited bedrooms, unlimited occupancy, is that correct? So if you put a couple of bunk beds, let's say 2 sets of bunk beds in a bedroom, in a 3-bedroom, you've got 24 people in a unit. Times 750, you know how much that is? 18,000. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I mean, the math is right, but to help me understand what you're trying to, you're gonna have 8,000 people in
So you just said
these units?
750 units,
Yep.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Unlimited bedrooms.
Sure.
So there's 3 bedrooms per unit.
Yep.
Okay? Do the math.
Yep.
24 people,
Yep,
750 units.
yep.
Am I wrong? Okay. I'm going to back up a little bit. A year ago, Massachusetts declared a state of emergency for, amongst other things, lack of housing. Simultaneously, they left in place the sanctuary state policies and the one in the country right to housing. All illegal immigrants have to do is get here, and they get absolutely everything, the gold standard in welfare. We give them everything. And you know what? One of the things we give them is one of these. The first thing they do when they get this is call home and say, you can't believe, look at my apartment that they put me in for free. Look at the catered food, okay? So Massachusetts has created this problem by allowing the border to be open and the sanctuary state policies to remain in place. So don't come to us to look for solutions when you created the problem.
Well, not me,
And-
I didn't write it, but.
Correct, I don't mean you directly. I meant the state. I'm talking about the state.
I get it.
You know, so we can't build our way out of this problem. You know, we talk about 15 units per area and densities, but if the door is still open and we're dangling pork chops for these people, of course they're going to come here.
No, I mean,
And we'll never stop. It
Yeah,
will
so
never
I
stop.
get
We're
the,
spinning our wheels.
Okay, so, yeah, well, thank you. Do you have any other questions
Yes,
you
I
want
do,
answered? Because we do have
Actually, I
a
do.
list, a pretty big list of people that
Yep,
all
yep,
want to
one
say
more thing.
something.
We have no faith that the state will at any time change the rules and always in their favor. And it will leave us out to dry because we said yes to an overlay. And for you to say yes to the overlay, but it doesn't mean they're going to build. Well, what's the overlay for if they're not going to build? That's disingenuous for you to say that. Of course they're going to build.
Can't build, well, again, folks, we're going to be here for 2 days if you keep interrupting, so please don't do that. Just,
I think that's all I have.
everybody has something to say, and we would like to hear it and go from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Amy Troop.
Amy Troop, 10 Hillside Avenue. First of all, by the lakes was pre-zoning, 1918, 1920, cottages built on 5,000 or 10,000 or more square feet. The idea that 15 houses per acre is on that, by the way, is absolutely incorrect. There are 7 to 8 houses per acre tops. I live there, John, so
If you have a question, we're glad to answer it.
one of the
Otherwise-
reasons that we went through zoning to make it so that Halifax in every single zone has 40,000 square feet, 150 feet of frontage. You need to set your house 50 feet back, 30 from the sides, and 40 from the back. That goes in commercial and industrial. Let me tell you something right now. That is our master plan. That is what we sold people in this town to have as a guarantee on what their houses would have around them. When we sell houses, we're supposed to say industrial lands across the street, industrial lands behind, or whatever the case may be. This change is now allowing people who bought on Holmes Street or Twin Lakes or anything like that have anything carte blanche built behind them. I have absolutely zero faith in our town boards right now to make sure that water protection or any of that would happen. We have Monpont overlay being built on with a senior overlay district with a variance given for their septic system for 30 units to be closer to the water table than ever allowed by the state. That is wrong. So first of all, that's that. Twin Lakes and Leiden Lane were 335 units that came in the 80s, 70s and 80s. And, you know, subdivision control went in after that. Do you want me to tell you why? I will. Here it is, water supply. Do we not have a water ban? Do we not able to water our lawns from now May all the way until October 1st? Do we have enough room in our schools? Do we have enough room on our roads? This is subdivision control questions that the planning board's supposed to ask when a subdivision comes in. So basically what you're doing is stripping the rights of all the people that live in this town. 8,000 of us, 6,500 of us are registered to vote, and we are not happy about this. And by the way, I have a question. That 3,107 units in town, does that include industrial and business? Because I'm thinking it does.
It's residential units from the
Only.
census.
Only, because it's pretty close to the total number, so that's going to show you that we don't have a lot of industrial and business land. So 3,107 people bought houses with certain guarantees. That zoning for the lower density is a Board of Health reason. When we have septic systems that are overflowing in our ground table and ruining our lakes, our groundwater, that's a problem. That means we can't live here anymore. Because, you know, an Indian would actually move off of that land after a certain amount of time because that land would be bad for you. We can't just keep outsourcing water from other areas because they're losing water at the same rate. So what you're actually doing by this overlay district is by right allowing people to do this. And then with the 750 units and Pongratz giving the number on how many people could possibly be here, but let's just do 1,500. Let's say that we have 1,500 new residents and they have 750 kids. How are we going to build the school? $100 million? Is that what we're looking at? So we're worried about losing $250,000 from the state. And my final remark will be, we do not live in Britain. We don't have a tyrant. What we have is a government of the people, by the people. And our governor telling us what to do is not allowed in the United States of America unless we allow it.
No. Yeah, that's just not helpful, folks. I think it says Catherine, maybe, Fitzgerald, McClellan Road. I might be misreading that. Mr. Arthur Fitzgerald, maybe? Or Mr., oh, there you go. Yep, come on up.
First thing I'd like to do is apologize to you gentlemen for not understanding the damn thing you've been talking about. I'm 85 years old. I moved into Halifax 54 years ago.
Right in close to the microphone.
54 years ago.
No,
on McClellan
could you
Road.
get closer to the mic? They can't hear you. That's
Okay.
Thank you.
85 years old, 54 years ago, I moved into Halifax on McClellan Road, which, having measured the distance between the damn train station and my house, is 4/5 of a mile. Now, am I accurate in saying I have an acre lot, acre and a quarter? Am I saying that my backyard is vulnerable to somebody building a tenant in it? I mean, a house in it? Is that what's going on here?
I don't think your McClellan Road is anywhere close to the map, but you could put the map up maybe, and that would show us.
Well, I know I'm 4/5 of a mile. It's 2 roads and halfway down the road away from the
Yeah.
train station. Then it's 4/5 of a mile. Does that mean that my property's vulnerable to be taken by eminent domain?
No, sir. So, when you go through a zoning, you change the base zoning. Now, there are communities, mine, for example, Whitman, you know, zoned around their train station. There's, Regal there's a barber shop, there's single-family homes. All of that will exist in eternity if it wants to. If a homeowner wants to sell, or a group of homeowners, a business owner, whoever, then that will start it. But as long as you live in your home, you keep your home sort of like within family or whatever, nothing will happen to that. Now, I know, people are going to paint that as incorrect and fake news and all of that, but I can only tell you how things operate within the zoning legal sort of process. And, I think Governor Healy is the one that's sort of like implementing this, but I think it's worth mentioning again that this was passed by a Republican governor. No, but I'm just saying.
You mean a rhino?
Well, whatever. But it's being implemented at a time by a new administration. So there's going to be some distrust but all I can tell you from a legal standpoint is that your house will remain single-family home as long as you want it to.
Okay, so there's no eminent domain to take into consideration.
No, eminent domain will not come into this.
Okay. Now, I personally would look, there's a state law that if you have so much land and you have a little income or whatever, that you meet the circuit breaker clause, and that gets me like $1,200 to $1,500 a year on my taxes, saving on my taxes. So any income, anybody that's going to decrease the area of my land is going to hurt me a lot.
We're not going,
So,
I don't think your property's even in the zone.
All right,
It's
but
just distance.
don't you think that this could ruin neighborhoods?
So, again, just to make it real clear, first of all, we didn't create this law, right? We're trying to
But you're dedicated
understand
to
it and come up with a potential solution, okay? So that's the
Okay,
first thing. Second thing is, though, just to be clear, we don't get to vote on whether or not it's a good law. That's something you have to deal with the state. All we are suggesting is, this is what the state's telling us, and that a solution to that is the zoning, rezoning the Twin Lakes area and that garden property. That's all we're talking about. We have nothing to do with whether or not it's a good idea or a bad idea, the law itself. All we can do is deal with as it is, and then let the chips fall where they may.
You are going to change the boundaries of the houses, right?
No, just the
You're
zoning.
not going to say that they don't require acre lots anymore?
No, that's got nothing to do with this, no.
Well,
All this has to do with is that our proposal is exactly what you saw on the map, the outline on the map, and taking that area and having it, what they call an overlay on top of it that says this is a multi-family district, rather. That's it. No, we're not changing lot lines, and again, we're not doing anything, first of all. All we're doing is looking at the problem, or not problem, looking at the circumstances and coming up with whatever we think is the best resolution. The other resolution to this issue is you go to town meeting in December and you say, we don't want to rezone it. In which case, we are out of compliance, and then we have to deal with whatever issues the state comes up with. That's what we're talking about. So what we've done is we've identified these circumstances, we've done all the research and the studying that we can do to figure out the best place to put it if we're going to put it, and leave that up to you folks to make that decision. So that'll be entirely your choice. We recommend that we do it this way because it puts us in compliance, and we think that it doesn't really change anything. Now, people can disagree about that, but that's the proposal.
Now, there's a big parcel of land that's right next to the railroad station that goes almost all the way to Hanson, except for the big swamp. Is that part of the Twin Lakes?
The garden, what used to be called the garden land?
Yes.
Part of it is. I don't know if all of it is.
Yes, it is.
All of it is, yes.
All of
But
it is?
again, if you look at the map, maybe we could put that one up there. Oh, that one here. If you look at the map, I don't know if you can,
I can't.
but we can show you if you need to. But the garden land is generally wet,
Yep.
so it doesn't get built on anyway, so.
Okay. So when you say Twin Lakes, you mean going back
We made the development, the Twin Lakes development. That's what those 4 parcels are. They're all owned by Twin Lakes. It's all either in common property or owned by Twin Lakes, already built on. They've already built a multi-family district there. We just don't call it that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, yeah, thank you. Tanya Bajanero? Again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing, I just don't know how to do it.
Good evening. My name is Tanya Bejarano, and I live on Cranberry Drive. I just have a simple question for clarification, because I think I'm misunderstood.
Ma'am, would you just come a little closer so everybody
Sure.
can hear you?
Yep.
Thank you.
You said that if our current infrastructure does not support the additional housing, then this point is moot and it can't happen, the project can't happen. I was wondering how many units, if any, our current infrastructure can handle.
I'm not sure how to answer.
I don't have an exact number, but we have excess ability to draw water from our wells, and we have excess ability to go back to DEP and apply for more under the wells. So it's certainly a question I can get answered.
Is that information that we can get ahead
It
of
absolutely is. Well, I'll say yes and no, because every unit draws different amount of water. So it's, right, so if you have a 1-bedroom unit with a 1-bath, there's water capacity. If there's multiple bathrooms, there's different water capacity, so it
Okay,
could.
we need to know this information before we can cast our vote.
I can tell you there is significant excess capacity in the wells.
Okay, but you don't have an exact number on how many units this can hold?
I'm sorry, what was that? I couldn't hear over
You
the
don't know
noise.
how many units that can assist? How many additional
No,
units
because
we can-
there's so many variables that go into it. When a developer applies for a water connection permit, they take into account the flow, and that's something that they are able to determine if it can handle it based on the development, because there's so many variables, right? If it's a
There are
single-family home.
so many variables, yes.
Then the water capacity that's needed is different, so
Okay,
it varies.
thank you. One other thing, I'm a public school teacher. Could you provide the DESI information on the past 30 years of enrollment in Halifax? How could we get that information? Is it on the website?
I think Cody can bring it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
I sent it to Cody, sort of broken down over the year period in terms of like each grade level and the numbers for each grade level, starting in 1993.
Okay.
I think, but yeah, you could go into DESI and look at any individual school year, but I pulled up all 31 and
super.
sort of looked, but yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. All right, John Bedot. John Bedot?
Hi, John Bedot, 165 Walnut Street. I just got one to reiterate on her question. Who determines the infrastructure support? I mean, like, I know we got 2 wells in town. One never runs. We have one that does run. And anyone that has town water here, I wanted someone to bring a cup tonight. Really, because, I mean, have you seen our water? So who actually determines that our infrastructure will support it? Okay, that's question one. Let me finish, all right? And then grant loss. Whew, you scared the heck out of me. All those grant losses we're gonna lose. Tons of them, tons of them. And wait. That list might change. The state might change it.
Mr. Bedot,
let me finish. The state might finish.
I will allow you to finish, but
So
please
we're gonna do
keep
an
them here.
overlay district to be in paper compliance, okay? So we're gonna be in paper compliance with the state. When all these other towns decide, we might do that same thing. We're gonna put our trust in the state to say, we're not gonna change this law a little bit or tweak it because all these towns are beating us on it. I mean, it's not gonna happen. You are not gonna beat this state, okay? So an overlay is not gonna solve the issue. The other thing is, all right, as a contractor in the town, I'm looking at this map and I'm seeing dollar signs. Because I can go into any one of your homes that's in that overlay, that's a single family, and I can tear it down and I can put up a multi-unit, okay, as long as the infrastructure will support it, which it sounds like it will, all right, brown water and all.
Just as a point of clarification, there are no single-family homes in the proposed overlay district.
None of them, no single-family homes at all.
Correct. Then we're talking 4 parcels of land, 3 of them are Twin Lakes, and 1 is the garden company, which has no development on it. It's, Twin Lakes is considered a multifamily development.
Okay,
Well, you'd have to buy, you could buy them all up if you wanted to.
okay. So, that one's lost, sorry about that. I honestly thought there were single families in the overlay district, so that is a good thing. And then the only other question is how is this gonna help our town, you know? And why did we choose not to fight the fight instead of just caving in as selectmen, as the board?
We're not-
I mean, did you choose the lesser of two evils? Is
Let's,
that what happened?
let me answer that question first, okay? So,
And I appreciate the work, because I know it was not an easy task.
well, we worked on it for a year. Well, let me just explain that. So, you play cards? You play poker?
No, I don't gamble with my money. I
don't have to gamble with it. How about gin
I
rummy?
don't even buy scratch tickets.
Let me look-
No one's even seen me in Commonwealth.
Let me do it this way then. You don't gamble with your money, that's good, because that's the point I'm trying to make. You get a deck, you get a hand, and you play the cards you have, right? So in Halifax, unlike, say, other communities perhaps, we have, we think, an opportunity to avoid getting into a fight with the state or on this issue. And we can do it, we think, again, by doing this rezoning in this area, which will not, again, nothing has to be built, it just has to be zoned in a certain fashion, right? We showed you the map, right? You see the map, and there's really, it's already built out. It doesn't matter how many buildings are in there, it just matters that it's already built out. Now, if somebody wanted to go in and buy them all, again, they're all individual, they could, then they could do a different project if they wanted to, but that's a different issue. But it makes little sense for us to incur legal fees, to incur all these other costs when we don't have to, right? That's why we're not quote-unquote fighting it. I mean, there is a lawsuit going on with Milton. It's costing them some dough. Some other towns have also kind of jumped in on it. There's nothing we can add to that, right? The only thing we can do here, really, at this point, is either follow this. This is our best proposal. We don't have a better one than this. This is our best proposal. You don't want to do it, we don't have to do it. If you don't want to do it, we have all of those other things that we have to worry about. So, I mean, that's the choice that the town has to make. We're not telling you to do anything. All we're telling you is that this is the situation, and examining it as best we're able to. And by the way, we had consultants come in to do all those numbers, you know, and make sure everything was in the right spot and all of that. And we think this is the option. So that you have 2 options. You can say no, and that's up to the town. If they want to say no, they say no. You understand the possible penalties, but that's up to the town. Or we can do it this way, and we think that will bring us into compliance. Now, can the state change the law later? Oh, absolutely. But we can't, they could change the law on anything tomorrow. So you can't really make your mind up with that. All we can do is deal with the cards we have.
Right. Thank you for the board for putting your work into this.
Thank you.
You're just asking us to put our trust in the state, and that's really hard to do. Thank you, though.
I get that. Thank you. Nancy Stevens?
Nancy Stevens, 600 Twin Lakes Drive. I have a question. If that area you said is owned by Twin Lakes, how will it be developed? You can just go in and take it?
No, that's the point. The point is, we don't have to build anything. All we have to do is create a zone that would allow this development. If there's already buildings on the property, nothing changes. Unless you decide to sell, you could, in which case whoever buys it perhaps could do whatever they're going to do, but again, Twin Lakes, as you know, are all individual owners.
Now, wouldn't the Twin Lakes be included in this percentage?
The what?
Because wouldn't it be included in the percentage? We're half a mile from the train station, they're multifamily homes?
Yeah, so that number, I think, is a little bit confusing in one sense. Well, it's a lot of confusing in a lot of senses, I agree. But you have to zone the area that could theoretically support that number, right? We don't have to have 750 extra units. We don't have to have any. All we have to do is have an area that theoretically, based on the state's calculations of so many houses per unit, per acre, and so on and so forth, could theoretically cover that. So the fact that Twin Lakes is already completely built, we don't have to add to that.
No, we don't have to have 750 units, but as soon as it's rezoned, we will. That's what's going to happen.
So that's the point. The point is, the reason why we think this is the right area is because, again, if you look at the map that we showed you, not this one, but the one with the wetlands in it, you can see all the houses in there, right? That's where all the development is. And you can see the general outline of the district. Aside from where the houses, or the condominiums already are, the rest of it's wetland. So we think you can't build on there anyway. Now, there is some land
What
on
about the big land, the brown part behind us?
Which
All
way?
that. Right here. All of this.
Whoop. Ha.
It's gone now.
Oh, we need Caesar back for that. So,
The
are you,
top left-hand corner.
That is all wetlands.
Oh,
That
okay.
is per Mass DEP, wooded swamp, mixed trees.
So how come that, all right, so what part, so all of that is what part isn't wetlands?
If it's not colored. So if it's not, if it doesn't have one of that blue, if it doesn't have the blue or the bright green or that orange color, then it's, yep, that's all wetlands. All in that top left corner, that is all wetlands.
It's not colored.
It's that brown color.
All right, well,
The blue is another form of wetlands.
okay, and what I wanted to say is, I don't know about everyone else here, but I'm assuming a lot of people moved to this town because it was a nice, quiet, suburban town, not overcrowded. It's been getting worse over the past 30 years that I've lived here, and this isn't what any of us signed up for.
well, I can't, again, I want you to, people have to understand, your government, the local government, us, the Board of Selectmen, and all of these folks that have been involved in this, we aren't proposing this at all. It is in our idea. We have a state law. It's a state law. It says, if you read the state law, you have to do this. Okay, so we're looking at that, and we could have, and again, you folks are going to get to vote in December. You can vote, no, we're not going to do this proposal, and we don't have an alternate, so therefore we're out of compliance, and whatever the penalties are, the penalties are. Or we can go this way. So that's all there is to it. I agree with you 100%. We don't like being told what to do. I don't know how to express it any better than you just did, but that's the cards that we have. That's why we're doing
Well,
it.
especially considering this is our money. It's our money we pay in taxes. So who are they to hold it hostage unless we jump
Again,
through hoops for
the
them?
problem is, we can't, that's not going to, you won't see on the town meeting warrant, do you approve
Right.
3A?
No, I
You won't see
understand.
that. All you're going to see is, there's a zoning change potential, and this is and we explain this is the reason for it. That's where we are with it. It's nothing, it's nothing more than that. We're not the Attorney General who has decided that it's a really good idea to sue her constituents
Yeah.
as opposed to chasing criminals. I mean, that's a whole different issue, right?
Also, one more question. I'm curious about how you said there's been a decline in the schools and number of people. So we've gotten rid of faculty as well. We've gotten rid of other people. So when the amounts go up again, we're going to have to hire more people.
If they go up, sure.
Well, they will go up when all these units are
Well,
built.
so don't forget, you don't have to build 750
They
units.
will, but if
But
the
there's-
land is there, they will build
The reason
them.
why we're proposing this district, is, one, because it already is a multifamily unit, so it fits within the definition. And secondly, it doesn't appear, at least in our analysis, that there's anywhere to build in there, really. And we don't have to build any, so.
And now you said it's zoned also for commercial.
I'm sorry,
It's zoned for commercial also?
no, This overlay would allow for mixed-use development on the first floor if a developer chose to do that. So you couldn't just go in and build just commercial. You'd have to build, we detailed the different
An
criteria.
apartment building with something on the first
Yeah,
floor.
so like the one I used the one in Hanson as an example. There's a coffee shop on the first floor, a hair salon.
Yeah.
So that type of
Have you
development.
been through Hanson Center?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to live.
By the way,
there.
if you look at the zoning bylaw, the bylaw itself, not just the map that's out in the back there, you'll see that there are requirements for, assuming something is built in that area, there are requirements. It's pretty much the same as what's already there as far as Twin Lakes. It's the number of stories, the number of area, and that kind of thing.
But is there a guarantee that the requirements can't change once we've overridden this?
Those requirements will be voted on at town meeting. So, yeah, you can change them if you want to.
No, I'm saying the state can't come in then and say, we're going to change them?
I can't tell you what the state's going to do.
Right, the state's going to do whatever the state wants to do. So
You're
as
right.
soon as we do this without a fight,
Well, the fight is, just say no, and then we will end in a fight. And if that's, but again, don't forget, we're going to be spending the town's money on legal fees or on projects that we can't get grants for, and so on. So
well, I would rather do that than have a bunch of the townspeople move out because of
that's
this.
entirely your right, entirely
Okay,
your right.
thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Presby? Jerry Presby? Oh, come on up, please.
I gotta go down there.
Hi, I live on Aldana Road, Jerry Presby. And the thing that I'm concerned about is once we change this zoning law, then the whole complexion of the town changes. Because even though you said there's a lot of wetlands, I believe people will come in, buy up the land, and change everything. Route 36 cannot handle the amount of traffic that extra units will take in. The schools can't, the fire and police department can't. Our entire complexion of this town will suffer if we go along with complying to this mandate. I think we need to join other towns in fighting what is going on with the state, because it's a one mandate, one size fits all, and it doesn't fit our town.
Oh, I
That's
agree
all
with you,
I wanna
but
say.
again, it depends on where you want to spend your money. If you spend your tax money on that, we will.
Now, for example, I live on Aldana Road. I'm within a half a mile of the
Well,
train station.
You may, but again, the zone isn't including Anthony Road.
It's not including that. So
No.
someone couldn't come in and buy my neighbor's house and put in a
No,
huge
no,
thing.
because if you look at the zoning map, you'll see Aldana Road is not included in there.
Okay, but it could eventually become included.
No, well, the
It could, right?
town meeting would have to do that.
Okay.
We could do it now. I mean, if town meeting decided tomorrow they wanted to rezone a section of property, we certainly could. It's got nothing to do with this requirement, but they could.
I think that's the way we would be heading if we allowed the zoning change. Thank you.
All right, David Massio?
David Massio, 16 10th Ave. So I understand what you're saying, okay? And I want to kind of help a little bit explaining. Basically what you're saying, okay, with the consultants, which I just heard about this part, basically what you're saying is that we say yes. We don't have facts as to how much land we can actually use. We're gambling, essentially, that you say, okay, yeah, we don't sign this, we don't say yes or else. We're going to lose all these grants. So we say yes to this. Essentially, you believe that, oh, there's not enough land over there. There's not enough for them to say yeah. But it's proposing a zoning change, which eliminates our zoning laws completely and brings.
It doesn't eliminate it. It does, it just,
Excuse
it
me,
defines.
I'm sorry, you're right, I stand
Yeah.
corrected. It changes the zoning laws just for that
Just for that
proposed area.
property, yes.
Okay? Which I understand. So have you used these committees or these consultants to back up how much land we don't have? Do you have actual figures of what land is wetlands that is already zoned wetlands
Yeah,
that we cannot build on?
that's what the map shows.
100%, we can't build on it. So why aren't you guys going back to the state and saying, hey, look it, we've looked at all these areas that could be proposed, and we can't do it. So why should we why would that make us have to not fall in compliance if we can't do it anyways?
We really don't have that vehicle. We have the law is what the law is.
What do you mean the vehicle?
You say, well, we should go back and argue with the state. The only thing that we've already talked with, so.
The state is saying either you sign yes or else. And
Well, that's the law, yeah.
That's the vehicle.
Yeah.
Not the state listening to the town boards, our administrator, our zoning boards, our planning boards saying, hey, these people know what they're doing. Okay, yeah, you're right. We can't support this in the town. Just, it's a past law.
So, see how I can explain this.
Because what you're doing is sleight of hand.
No. 3A.
Play cards, John?
3A,
You play poker?
I don't.
Okay, sleight of hand.
3A.
You see something going on over here, but there's really something going on over here.
3A, Section 3A says you have to have this multifamily zone if you're whatever it is. It says you have to do that, right? And so, what the town hasn't done yet is adopt this particular zoning. The town doesn't do it, they don't have to, but if we're going to be in compliance, we have to do it by the end of this year. So, and in order to be in compliance, we have proposed, again, this isn't our idea, get that understood.
I know
All
that.
right? We have
I'm not yelling at you.
proposed a solution to the town that will comply with the law. We know it will comply with the law because we've already had this sent to the housing people that will ultimately make a decision whether or not we're in compliance, and they sent it back and said yes, except a couple of minor things which we fixed. So we know that the state will accept this, and then the only question becomes, does the town want to accept this? Now, whether you think the law is so bad that we shouldn't comply with it at all, that's perfectly your right. That's perfectly your right. You can do that. But just what we're trying to do tonight is understand the options. So the option on the one hand is to say no, that we're not going to zone this.
Right.
We're not going to change the zoning.
But
And
you
the other
got-
option is we have a
You've got a room
potential.
full of people here that are concerned that whether we buy the snake venom oil or not, it's gonna be okay and no big deal. You guys gave a great presentation on how great this vehicle is gonna be for where it's gonna go, but nobody wants their taxes to go up anymore. They don't wanna see more people and, honestly, what has been looked at as far as the housing crisis in Halifax? If you go to a movie and you buy a ticket for the movie and the movie's full, are they gonna try and sit people on the floor? We're full in Halifax, right? Essentially, how many houses do we actually have for sale in Halifax? Anybody know?
3,107, according to the last one.
3,100.
Oh, for sale, oh, for sale. Oh. So,
But again, wait, let me talk.
They're gonna have to pay 1.5% exit tax.
So,
Thank the governor.
we're full in Halifax. We don't have the things to facilitate more in Halifax.
Yeah.
Is this things that the boards have brought up to the state? 100% saying, hey, look we can't afford to take more people in. What we do need help with is to reduce the amount of taxes that this 30 and 40-year residents here, fixed income, that are paying astronomical taxes on their homes. And then there's people like me, I got a 1,100 square foot house on 4,800 square feet of land. I'm paying over $5,000 there. That's insanity. Then we're gonna bring in low-income housing to support what?
this isn't low-income housing, but let's just, try to focus on, if you don't like the plan, you don't like the plan.
Nobody in the
Just
room likes the
vote
plan.
no.
That's not the point, John.
Well,
The point is, my point, I'm sorry, I kind of strayed off a little bit. How much have you guys done against this plan to give it to the state and say, hey, look, we can't comply.
Bingo.
Nothing.
Well,
We can't
we don't have
comply
that, we don't
to
have
what-
that
let me talk.
option.
We can't comply to what you're asking for.
We don't have that option. We don't have that option.
To your point, I can tell you that I have had several meetings with the Department of Housing and Livable Communities, which is the state agency ultimately overseeing this. Selectman Seelig has joined me for several of those meetings. Mr. Bruno has joined me for several of those meetings. We have voiced for the past year and a half, we have voiced that to the state. So everything that you're saying, we have voiced that to them. We have let them know of their concerns. That 750 units, hypothetically, is a huge amount in Halifax. It shouldn't be a one-size-fits-all approach. We have expressed all of that. Now, what the state has done in response is, I can say the Housing and Livable Communities haven't done much, but I can give Representative Lenatra credit. When we reached out to her with our concerns, she put us in touch with Old Colony Planning Council and got us the funding for all of this information to, again, just provide the information tonight. This isn't to sway one way or the other, just so you're making an educated decision at town meeting.
I'm here, I didn't come here to throw an argument, I came here to learn. Okay, that's why I'm here, because I'll be honest with you, over the course of the last 2 summers here in Halifax, we have seen some dramatic changes, massive changes, especially to our lakes. I'm not going to bring this topic up, but it has been a nuisance. You know what I'm talking about. The chief knows what I'm talking about, okay? That's just a small fraction. These aren't even residents yet in what's going on with our town. So with just that little bit, this is a fight that we have for our boards to present to the state for the or else. I mean, there's no other way around them saying, hey, look it, you're right. One size does not fit all, okay? Halifax can't support anymore. We got, 9 houses, Amy? 9 houses for sale in the town of Halifax. I guarantee they got to be all over $300,000 because, it's pricey to live here. What did you guys do to try and stop it over a year and a half?
Well, Eric Messio?
Good evening. My name is Eric Moschino. I'm actually a resident of Plymouth. I'm also a candidate for state representative. My comment on this, first and foremost, is this absolutely reeks of authoritarianism. The state has presented us with a choice. You can comply, and that's what everybody keeps saying, comply. You have to comply. That sounds a lot like tyranny to me, okay? And if you don't, we're gonna punish you. We're going to use your own tax dollars to sue you potentially, and we are going to withhold your tax dollars from you. So yes, there's a choice. You can comply and sell out the town's bylaws, which is, I think, a travesty, because people, like Ms. Troop said, like this gentleman here said, these bylaws are here to protect the people. This is why people move to these towns. They didn't move here to live in Little Brockton. So yes, this is a choice to comply or to be punished. And I think we have a room full of people here that don't like this at all. And I actually, I'm sure somebody's going to hate me for saying this. I commend you. That's a pretty interesting project you got there. I still don't like it. I mean, it's an interesting solution, but I think it's wrong to sell out the town's bylaws. And there is a potential, and yes, you did go to Ms. Lenatra, but my question is, for Kathy, addressing it to you, John, you can see your constituents don't want this at all. What are you doing at the State House to protect your constituents from this ridiculous overreach in state authority when we are losing, on average, 1,100 people a week from this state because of policies like this? So the past 3 years, we're talking about, what, 170,000 people? Why do we need mandated state housing? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know, it's up to you if you want to answer. She doesn't have an answer. So. Thomas Pratt? Tom Pratt. Where'd he go?
Hi, Tom Pratt, 10 Arrowhead Path. In full transparency, I'm also a member of the Board of Selectmen, but I'm asking these questions as a private citizen. Just two quick things. One for Jason, I believe it was. Can you just re-reference the 45% approval rate and what that represented?
Yes. So wait, that one?
I think you referenced 45% of towns have approved.
45% of the towns that are required to comply with the MBTA.
And what about the remaining 55? How much are up for debate in this election cycle, and how many have not complied? What percentage has not complied?
So, I mean, I could do the math. It would take me a second,
Yeah,
but
please. Can we do the math, please?
it would be, so those have complied as of right now, but not everyone has the same compliance deadline.
Correct.
So
45% have complied. What percentage has not complied?
well, there's at least 3 right now that are formally not in compliance. Milton, because their compliance deadline was last year. Hanson. Well, so a number of these communities haven't had their special town meeting yet in order to vote for it.
Well, you
but-
referenced 45% in compliance. I'm asking how many percent is out of compliance? Is it 55? Out of
No, I
compliance?
mean, no, because I'd have to take a look from the website to see how, like, who's actually not in compliance and who hasn't had their compliance deadline come up yet.
Well, if 45% are in compliance, it has to be a percentage out of compliance, correct?
Yes.
What is that percentage?
Until the end of the year. So technically, they're not.
No. If you're referencing 45% in compliance now,
Yes.
there has to be a certain percentage out of compliance now.
All right, just based, like, quick figure off the top of my head, give or take, it's probably between 10 and 15. Now, the remaining of that 40 to 45 or whatever would be, are not required to be in compliance until either the end of this year or the end of next year, because a majority of them are small, adjacent towns, which don't have to come into compliance, until the end of this year, and then small adjacent towns don't have to come into compliance until the end of next
So
year.
if 45% are in compliance and 15 are out, we have 60% compliance in and 40% pending?
No, it's largely to be determined.
Right, so 1/4% have declined. So 1 out of 4 have declined, 3 out of 4 are in with 40% pending. Is that fair?
Maybe, again, it's like without having the towns in front of me, it's hard to say.
Okay. A lot of my other questions have been satisfied tonight. Just one quick question, maybe for the group, and I know I'm directing you to the chair. A lot here is directed in this direction of the table. I would ask the crowd, maybe to ask Senator Brady and Representative Lenatra, how we got here and why you recommend this. You voted for it. Both of you did. Would you care to comment? You guys have done a lot of listening. Would you care to comment on why you voted for it? And as a representative of Halifax, why it's good for our town, not the other towns you represent?
Well, I will say that out of all the towns that I represent, this is the first meeting that I've been asked to come to regarding this new law, and I'm glad to have the input from the residents. We can try to change some of the laws that's been put in place if the people are not happy with the existing law. As was mentioned, this was proposed by Governor Baker. It was in with a housing bill that had a lot of other good things in it. You can't always get something perfect, as you know. I'm not making an excuse, but...
It's pork belly, right?
But, pardon me?
Pork belly spending, is that? Yes. Pork
No,
belly?
not necessarily. There's several towns that wanted this. Not every town is against this.
But not every town is for it.
I understand that. So if there's a chance to change this law, I'm happy to put that forth before the leadership and my fellow colleagues in the Senate, and I'm sure I can't speak for Rep. Lenatra, but we can try to change this if the majority of the residents are not happy with this.
What would you say if you represented Milton and the majority of their town voted no? Would you have halted a lawsuit, or would you have stepped in at any point, or would you let the lawsuit carry out?
I don't represent Milton.
But if you did?
Yeah, well, I'm learning about the lawsuit in Milton because I don't know all the facts in Milton. so
Well,
I cannot speak on it.
it's materialized over some time here.
I've talked to the legislators from Milton, and that's about it. I haven't heard from Milton residents about it. I don't represent Milton. I represent Randolph, Avon, Brockton, Whitman, Hanson, Halifax, and East Bridgewater. And I used to represent Hanover and Easton, but with redistricting, I have Avon and Powder Randolph now with Senator Timothy.
And have you heard any resistance from Hanson on that?
I have not heard anything from, this is the first meeting that I've been asked to attend to.
Hanson declined, correct?
Yeah, I talked.
And you weren't invited or didn't speak to them?
No.
No one contacted
I was not reached out from anybody on this issue. I get a lot of calls about everything else with, I serve on the Public Safety Committee, for instance.
I can appreciate that, yeah.
So I get calls about public safety issues every day, you know, to support police and firefighters, which I do all the time. I am also the chairman of the Public Service Committee, which represents a lot of public employees. So I get calls about people with disability, people get hurt on the job, about getting their pensions straightened out, funding this.
No, I can appreciate all that, but once Hanson voted no, did you find it appropriate to reach out to them to find out why?
I've gone before the selectmen, but none of them have brought anything up to me regarding this.
So did you reach out to them after they voted no? Have you had any correspondence after that?
I've talked to them, but again, no one has well, they bring other issues up to me, but they have not discussed this at all with me.
So,
Yes, so I have discussed this with all the towns that I represent, and some are not in support, and I support that. Do I think Halifax, I mean, obviously, you don't want this. Will I support that? Of course I will.
But you
Will I
voted
step
yes.
into a lawsuit? As Senator Brady said, it was 2 sessions ago, it was in a housing bill. There were a lot of good things in that housing bill. It was a unanimous vote. It was a unanimous vote at that time.
How many towns do you represent?
I'm sorry?
How many
6.
districts? 6 towns.
Mhm.
How many voted yes?
So far, none.
Thank you.
Yeah, so far, none.
just to be clear, Halifax technically, as a lot of those numbers that Cody was talking about, is not out of compliance yet. We will be out of compliance if we don't do the zoning change before the end of the year. So, just to be clear about how all that works. Okay, Pam Engstrom?
New town.
Pam Engstrom, no, we're going down the list. We're going down, we're going down the list. If I let you do it, everyone has to do it, please. Everyone has to follow the same rules.
One thing, it's on the subject that we just left.
Ma'am, please, I'm going to tell you, you're out of order now, please have a seat. If you want to speak, you'll get the opportunity after we go through the list. You already had a chance to talk, and I want to follow the rules here, all right? So Pam Engstrom, please.
Pam Engstrom, 65 Pond Street. Someone had already asked, and I just reiterate the question about who determines what the infrastructure supports. Not just, the water, which is a main concern. We got plenty of people who have, brown water. Whether you say there's enough water, I don't know if it matters if you've got brown water, but, roads, schools, everything else, who does determine what the infrastructure can support. Also, if the town were to vote on that one particular area, is there the ability for the state to expand beyond that proposed zone? In the documentation, it said, it covers like 40%, so it's,
So, all we can deal with is the rules we have, right? And the rules we have say that within a certain distance, you have to have a certain amount of, a certain district, right? If you agree with our proposal, with this proposal, if you agree with that proposal, then we would be designating a separate area as that particular zoned district, not anything else. It's just that one area. Now, can something happen in the future? I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what's going to happen in the future. Maybe, but I wouldn't say that based on the facts that we have now, that we are talking about one specific area with a border around it.
Okay, and then just one suggestion, when it comes to town meeting, if you guys can just be prepared to maybe show the residents what the financial impact, potential financial impact of complying and not complying. I know the grants are on there, but I'm just saying, for other.
Aside, the grant, in the statute itself, it specifically says that these grants would be withheld, right? So that's what those numbers were.
Right.
Are there other financial implications? I mean, if the Attorney General is successful in her lawsuit, which was just argued on Monday, then she has the ability and apparently the interest in suing her constituents, you and me, rather than chasing criminals, as I like to say. And, you know, what we'll have to do is we'll have to defend it. So that's going to mean Mr. Huckstrom is going to get paid. And so that's one of the financial things.
And I thought I heard recently it said, I don't know if we receive funding for the schools from the state. They were talking about withholding school funding.
We do, but that is not part of the discretionary funding. That's a separate issue.
Yep.
Again, the finances are kind of complicated, but that and the highway would not be part of this. Some of the other discretionary things that have to do with highways and buildings might be, but directly, you know, the funding we get for the school every year, the funding that the highway department gets every year, that's not part of this.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Karen Favor.
Good evening. Karen Favor, 66 Clyde Bosworth. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, why are we doing a zoning overlay versus just giving the town people the vote of denying the whole thing?
We are not. You can deny the whole
I'm
thing.
asking you why it's not on our warrant to deny the whole thing that we're doing. We're
You do.
asking the town constituents to do an overlay. That's not the same thing as shutting it down completely and saying we don't want this for our town.
So we
Why?
don't, even if we put that question on the ballot, it's not going to have much effect because we don't get the right as a town to vote on whether or not we agree with or accept the state law, right? So the state, let me finish. State says these are the rules, right? So our option is to try to comply with the rules as best as we can, which is what we're making a proposal. And honestly, as far as what our job is to evaluate this stuff and give the town its options, right? And the options here are, you can agree with this proposal and say, if we do that, we'll be in compliance and so on and so forth. Or you can say, we don't want it, in which case you're telling the state that you're not going to be in compliance. I mean, that's exactly what we're doing.
That's not an option on the warrant. We
No,
don't
that's
have
not.
that option. We only have an option of voting for this overlay.
Right. Well, that's all there is, that we don't
No,
have,
we could
we don't
vote-
have the option.
We could vote no, and that should be our right, to be able to vote it down, no, we don't want it.
We are. That's the question.
No, we're not. You just,
If you don't,
said
but that's the
you're
option.
trying to
Listen,
manage.
that's the option. The option is you vote to change the zoning or you vote no. If you vote no, you're saying no. If you vote to change the zoning, then you
You're
change the
going
zoning.
sideways, John.
No.
It's either we can vote no
Yes.
on the whole law, which is what the law is, right? We can
No,
say
we
no
can't.
as town.
We can't.
Or you're saying we're going to try to go into compliance by doing this overlay.
No. So you will not see on the warrant, do you agree with 3A or do you accept 3A or anything like that? We don't have that option. That's not an option. The option is either we do what the state's asking us to do or we don't. That's the option. We don't get the right to say to the state, we disagree with your law. You can do that if you want. It doesn't mean anything. If you wanted to, I suppose, and I haven't talked to the board about this, but I suppose you could put something on the ballot, on the warrant rather, that says, do we ask the state to change the law? Well, we could do that. It's going to have almost, whatever effect it has, I don't know what, but that's not the issue.
Well, you've given a nice presentation, okay? And I've heard a lot tonight of we think, I think. We think that the Twin Lakes will comply. We think. Well, guess what? Do you have it in writing that it's going to meet the compliance?
We do.
You have it in writing?
We do.
Okay, I'd like you to share that with everyone, that
Sure,
you
we
have it
can
in
post
writing.
that on our website, absolutely.
Because I've heard tonight, I think, we think, I think,
So
I think, and
this-
that's not the same
this-
as
this
we have in
zoning-
writing.
This zoning proposal, which is, again, one of the options of the town, you have two options. You can vote it up or down, and if you vote it down, you just understand that, there are other potential things. If you vote it up, we're in compliance, right? Has to be done by the end of the year. We've already sent that information, the bylaw, the map, the whole deal, to the same state agency that has to approve this anyway, and they sent it back to us, and they said, there's a few minor things that we want you to change, which we did. Nothing like, one of them was just a way you did the map. It was insignificant, really. And so we will be in compliance if this zoning change is agreed to.
Okay.
And again, it's not, all we're telling you, we just want...
I'm not saying you made up the rule.
We want everyone to understand what the state's requiring us to do, whether you agree with it or not, that's what they're saying, and B, what our options are. And those are our options. That's what this whole process tonight is about, is just trying to get everyone to understand. Now, how you vote on that is entirely up to you. You can have any reason in the world to vote yes or no. You know, maybe you don't like the law, maybe you don't like the way it's written, maybe you don't like it, maybe you agree, maybe you don't. That's entirely up to you. But at least understand the options. That's what we're trying to do.
Right. I just think that there is an option that we're not being given, which is vote the entire MBTA zoning down.
We can't do that. We don't have that option.
Okay, I think another town has done it. The other thing is that the Twin Lakes, I don't know if you're familiar with over by Portage Park, those condos that are there, that
Yep.
when they built that and they tried to include that in their scenario, they were shot down and they
don't
weren't
have a
able to
train
use
station.
it.
There's no train station there anymore. All right, so anyone who has not already spoken? All right, I think Joe I'm sorry, yep, come on up.
Jeff Loger, 837 Plymouth Street. Couple of things. Has a Thorndike project been taken into consideration for housing? You have 3,107
Well,
homes.
first of all, if you remember that one of the early slides, it said that under this law, we can't be age exclusive. So, and Thorndike is an over 55 development, so it
So
wouldn't
even
count.
though those homes will be added to Halifax's list, they will not be included in the count. Is that correct?
Well, they would add to our number of residents, yeah.
But it doesn't affect the percentage of 15%?
I
Okay,
don't think
that's
so.
fine.
No, we have to, no, so those things aren't even built yet. So
I
this
get
has to
that.
be done, in order to follow the law, we have to make a decision, all right? A decision by the end of this year, by December 31st. So
Okay.
if all those houses got built between now and then maybe it would change it, but that's not going to happen.
So there are laws made, this is a law, and there are also bad laws that have been written. So I have a question for the two reps that are here. Has anybody, Dred Scott is a perfect example of a law that is a bad law. So this is a bad law. Has anybody in the legislature looked into reversing this law?
Yes.
And what are the results?
So there's being legislation filed now, drafted now.
A little late.
Yeah, it is late, but it will be going in January.
Okay, and what happens if the legislature votes to reverse this law? All this will be for nothing.
It will. It will.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is your consensus at this point? I know it's still it's not January. What is your consensus on this?
There are a lot of towns towards the city that welcome this, and there's a lot of towns in our area that don't. One shoe does not fit all, and I realize that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Who's sponsoring that bill? Who's sponsoring the repeal?
The bill is being sponsored by myself and Matt Muratori.
To repeal the law?
Yep.
Hi, thank you. Peter Beals, 28 Elm Street in Halifax.
You might want to get a little bit closer. I know it's low, but...
It is.
Thank you.
All right. First, just want to say a word of thanks. I know I have served on town boards before, the town board before, not the selectmen, but finance for a long time. And I know that a lot of work is done and a lot of preparation is done, and I thank you for that. I do mean that sincerely. That said, I do believe that the town looks to the boards, because we're busy, as is everybody, including yourselves, and we entrust to the board that they will make the best decisions in the interest of the town, not just in themselves, but in the interest of the town. And tonight we've heard questions. We've heard that there's a couple of things that came to my mind. First, without doing any complicated math at all, this is a 25% increase in the number of, slightly under, but 25% increase in the number of housing units in our town. We have seen the town change recently, and I'm not against change, probably nobody is, but there have been significant changes in our town. To add another 25% means, even in this room tonight, theoretically 25% more people would be here for meetings like this, and multiply that out across everything. So it's a pretty significant decision in and of itself. The sentiment that I heard throughout, and I got here late because I came from work, so I didn't get to hear all the presentation at the beginning, but the sentiment that I heard, at least from my seat, which was all of the Q&A, was basically that we love our town and that we like it because of what it is and the way it is. It will change regardless of the type of housing that's built. If 25% is allowed to be built like that, the town will change, and I don't think anybody can deny that. If we love it the way it is, there's a reason for that, and that includes a certain definition of what it is. We have yet to see how the town will further change with a recently approved project that has taken place that hasn't even been built yet. I did attend that meeting over in the elementary school, and that night I also heard, well, this is just a zoning thing. A couple of people got up to the mic to raise some objections, and they were immediately shut down because the first article was simply zoning. We heard that repeatedly. I was going to say something, but I was trying to be respectful and follow the procedure, and okay, this question was on zoning. Before I even knew what happened, the meeting was essentially over and it had passed, because zoning evidently is quite an important component in all of this. So I guess the sentiment that I would repeat that I think we've heard is that of, are we a sovereign town or not? I know that's not entirely the case, but are we not able to govern and entrust our own board to govern ourselves? We've certainly heard tonight, I think almost unanimously from those who came to the podium, we've heard objection to this. It seems to me that the people of town are entrusting the board to, in this day when everybody's being told democracy is under threat, we're entrusting the board to represent us in some way. We realize you've done a whole lot more homework on this, and you've seen a whole lot more, and you're more familiar with the law than we are. But it seems to me we're against it. And we certainly hope that I can only say, I certainly hope that our boards would follow the will of the people on this kind of thing. I know that it goes to the ballot. I know that it's a vote by the people, that it goes to the vote later. But the will of the board, the position of the selectmen on it is an important thing in the town. And we certainly hope that they would represent the people.
All right, so just two things. One, again, the only place that would be rezoned is this place that's on the map. So it's not like you're going to build all of a sudden houses all over the place. As far as this issue goes, it would just be there. But the other thing, again, and I don't know, I thought I was being clear about this, but maybe I'm just inarticulate. But, our job as the Board of Selectmen is to address issues, address problems as they come along, and to evaluate those and then present to the town its options. That's all we're doing here. We don't get to vote on this. I get to vote one vote. He gets one, you get one. We all get one vote on whether or not that we want to comply under the proposal that we're making or not. But the board doesn't do that. All we're doing is presenting tonight the options to the town and saying that we have to make a decision. The town has to make a decision, not the board. The town has to make a decision by the end of this year. And so if you don't want it, just vote against it. Really, that's what it comes down to. Everybody has to weigh that themselves and make that decision. But the board doesn't. We could say no, and it doesn't make any difference.
It's all leadership. Are you going to tell us what you guys want or not recommendation? You're a resident.
Hold on, wait. I asked you before, please don't shout. I'll give you the opportunity to talk. Thank you. Peter.
If I may, so I wasn't here at the beginning, and so shame on me. I don't know all the ramifications of all of this and how it's unfolding in the next couple of months. But it certainly sounded to me, having come in middle of the presentation, as if the members of the folks up on the platform here were supporting this idea, that this was perceived as a general rule as a good thing and that the town ought to recognize.
What we supported was to evaluate the issue, which we did by assembling a separate committee to investigate it. Hired a lawyer, we hired all the people that we had to do the investigation, and then to come up with what the town's options were. And this is the best option we could think of. And that's how, that's what it is. That's all. And then we voted to put it on the warrant so that the town can make their own decision. And that's as democratic as you can get. And so, do we think that we should put it on the warrant and it should be decided by the town? Yeah. But it's up to the town. If the town, and understand, again, tonight's purpose was to make sure that everyone hears the same information, has the same information, and can understand their options. And so those are the options. So.
Yeah, and I would just jump in here. So I would just tell you that I appreciate the questions and all throughout. The zoning bylaw committee, review committee, did a lot of work on this. And about a month ago, we voted collectively, unanimously I might add, to put that forward to a vote in December, to put it on the ballot to comply with state regulation. Subsequently, I was asked by a resident who's here tonight on social media, from my personal point of view, I think we satisfied as a board the obligation put forward by the state to put it on the ballot. I don't support the mandate. I don't support that mandate at all. I will be a no on December 16th. The state should not be allowed to tell us how to govern our own town. Possible extortion, possible, rule changing, it's not appropriate, it's not their purview, and I'm a no vote, and I made that public only when asked on social media. I don't want to speak for either of these two individually or collectively, but I'm a no vote on the mandate. It's not appropriate or in the best interest of the town, for me.
So again, as long as you leave tonight understanding the options, vote whichever way you're right. Obviously, everybody doesn't agree with you. There are people that maybe aren't speaking tonight that don't agree with you. They think we should do this, right? So it's entirely up to the town. Everyone gets a vote, and then we go, and the board and the town and everybody else will go with whatever the town decides. So, I don't know how they any clearer than that, really.
Can I ask one follow-up question? It's related to something that was said, but not directly on this. We were told that the town has a significant excess in water capacity. Can the selectmen, can we do something about the water ban that we have every year? I'm not kidding.
You're really off topic on that, and we should have the water commission in here for that. Remember, they control the water, so.
When I
and
was
we don't have anything to do with the ban, by the way.
Just piece of information. When I was on the finance committee for years, I was the liaison to the water department, and the water commissioner, I think is the title, who had that job for many, many years, told me that when a housing development is built, there's no study done, or there was no approval. He was not in the room about whether the expansion could handle the water. I don't know the truthfulness of that or not. I kind of came away, having studied the water thing, with the idea that this was kind of something nobody really knew. So if it is in fact true, I'm just asking if the selectmen, off topic, but it was brought up, so that would be really great.
We'll pass that on to the water commission, and they can
I'm
tell
asking
us
the
the answer
selectmen,
to that.
yeah.
Thank you. All right, anybody else who hasn't spoken? Jean? Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jean Gallant, Cranberry Drive, also the library director. And I wasn't aware, but I heard in the presentation, so my question's to you, Jason. You said that you put up all the grants that may be affected, and then you said, and the library too. So are we talking my state aid that I get every year for being in compliance with my library regulations from the state, or or like construction grants and things like that? Thank you.
So without having the entire state budget in front of me, I will put that asterisk
don't?
there.
Yeah.
But it depends on which funds of those are through qualified allotments, the ones that you get anyway, and then which ones are considered quote-unquote discretionary. Now,
So
the list that was on.
discretionary- It's the discretionary funds that would affect the library? Or
I
is there
can,
someplace
yeah,
I can
so
look?
after this, I'll give you my, I give you my information, and then I can get that information for you,
Okay.
just so you have it.
Yep, all right, thank you.
Okay, anyone else who had, yes, sis, come on up. Just, again, tell us who you are, and come close to the mic so everyone
I'm
can
going
hear.
to do my best here. Robert Hughes on Christmas Tree Lane. I missed the section where you talked about the financial implications of not being in compliance. Could you pull that up?
Sure.
What's the monetary cost to us as a town here?
Oh, the actual
Yeah,
money?
what's the number?
grants, the
And is that an annual fee or is that like a one-time?
He's got two slides here to tell you what we've had in the past and what's coming up in the future. So, I'm sorry.
So what's on the screen now are grants that have either been applied for, that haven't been awarded yet, or ones that the town hopes to receive.
Okay, and
Or yeah. The towns that, the grants that the town can apply for, grants that are available for it.
No, these are grants that we are planning to apply for and have applications in process to submit. These aren't just grants that are available to the town that we're not going to take advantage of. These are grants that applications are in the process to be submitted for specific Halifax projects.
so just the list here, so it looks like back of the hand math, it's like $1.38 million. Is that correct?
Of potential funding, right. There's no guarantee. These are applications that are going to be submitted.
Got it. All right. And then the other question I had, I appreciate the effort you went through to find the least usable land possible within the half mile. It seemed to be, but it wasn't clear to me because the graph was decent, but I couldn't figure out what percentage of that land was already developed, and they would just have to knock over these, let's call them 2 units in a spot and put in, 50.
Have you ever,
Yes, sir.
Have you ever driven through Twin Lakes?
Maybe once or twice. but-
Okay, so Twin Lakes is a condominium development.
Yeah.
They're all like in a block, but each one is individually owned.
Yep.
It is actually for, I don't know where that lady went, the Twin Lakes lady, but it's a beautiful development.
Okay.
And so potentially, somebody could say, I'm going to come in, I'm going to buy up all of these individual units, tear them all down, and then rebuild a multifamily unit.
I totally understand that. My
Not
question
likely.
is, what percentage of the proposed land that you want to rezone is under that umbrella of all you'd have to do is buy that, bulldoze it versus develop wetland?
I don't know if we
I
can
feel
do
like
that,
that's an
but
important number
maybe
for me
Cody can
making my
answer that
decision.
question.
Okay, give me about 2 minutes. to
Absolutely.
Pull up the information.
Would you like me to make a noise or? Da, 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 da. No pressure.
No, don't put any more pressure on
Yeah,
them
right.
already.
Look,
We want
I'm
to get
doing
the
my
numbers
best.
right.
Since you're doing a little math, I would like to see how much 1.38 million would be per, what do we have, 8,000-ish people here? Yes. Yeah. 7,500? How many of them are taxpayers? All right, so we'll do 1.4 to make it nice and easy for us.
I don't understand why we need $1 million for redesign 58106, we just resurfaced that.
It's
part of the
Dave, come on. We're trying to run a meeting where everybody has to say. If you start howling, please don't do it.
It's $186.66 roughly per resident. If we, as far as like offsetting the 1.4 million, I'm overestimating the total amount of grants that we're applying for or would be no longer eligible to receive.
Well, that's right now, yeah.
Yeah, and so like a year per resident. My thought is, maybe I'm misreading the room, but I don't think so. Most people would rather pay in excess of $250 more a year in taxes. Not that I want to pay any more in taxes. That's the first time I've come close to saying that. Versus the possible outcomes for rezoning this area and seeing the population of the town significantly and the resources of the town significantly strained.
So again, the purpose of tonight's meeting
Yes, sir.
is to just give you folks as much information as you can, because we figure that when we get to town meeting, everyone has had enough time to digest, ask any additional questions.
Yes, sir.
Do any additional research, and at least that way we can,
Oh, I
at that
understand.
point, we can vote.
I understand. That was more for the crowd, so they understood the math. Like it's like $200 a year. Yeah. So I'm just, that was all. Did you find that percentage? That'd be great.
I do. So of the total 194 acres, 24.2% of it is not in Twin Lakes. And of that 24.2%, 5.51% of the overall acreage would potentially be developable, not wetlands.
Great. That was so again, that was my assumption looking at the graph. You did an excellent job of picking land that would be tough to build on and make it, less economically viable. But I think the overall risk, and I will be voting no. But I appreciate the presentation. Thank you for giving me those numbers, and thank you for your time.
Okay, so anyone else who hasn't yet spoken? Anyone else who hasn't yet spoken? In the back, sure, come on up front.
Sorry, but I have two questions.
Just-
I 7 Birch Road, Halifax, Mass. One member of the Board of Selectmen has made their position very clear as to where they stand on this. If I could get the other two, if they're willing to share it, their position on where they stand in relation to the state's mandate, whether they are for it or against it.
So again, the state mandate, if you're asking about whether or not the statute itself, I can tell you that I've already expressed as well as I can that I think it's a bad law and that it shouldn't be in existence, and it's an overreach and everything else. If your question is, do I think that it is in Halifax's best interest to rezone this area like we're proposing, then my answer is yes, given the facts that we have. And I won't speak for anyone else.
Sure. No, I'll answer gladly. When I first heard about this program and the number of 750, way too many. Way too many, right? I think all of us can agree nobody wants 750 units built in Halifax. I did share that information with the state. Cody and I have met with many people to express our concern that just not a good fit for Halifax, right? What I will say is the people that spent a year coming up with this overlay did a phenomenal job. Did a phenomenal job. You can say, oh my God, if you want. They did the best job they could. They found a spot in town that would be extremely difficult to develop, all while staying in compliance, right? It's a job that I don't want to speak for the committee at all. It's a job that none of them were excited to have. None of them went into this saying, oh boy, I get to do this for Halifax, right? Right? So they made the best chicken salad they could out of other chicken stuff. Right? Yeah. Whether you like it or not. So, so for me, I'll be honest, it's an inner struggle for me, and please let me explain why. If this means that there isn't any major development going on in Halifax, if it means that the plan that these folks came up with is going to insulate us from a major project coming down the pike, I do believe it's a good plan. That's if that happens. If not, then I'm not a fan, right? And no one can predict the future. Again, it's Twin Lakes, and it's no other buildings on that property, and it's the majority of wetlands. So again, kudos to this crew for coming up with a plan that, is it a guarantee that there's going to be no development? I don't think you can do that. Nobody can do that. But did they come up with a plan that will be very, very hard and maybe not economical for a developer to come in and build? I think they did.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody that spent the time to actually do this, and I'll follow that up with my second question.
Can I just jump in real quick, just as an aside? I'd also like to thank the committee, but their charge was not singularly the MBTA. And I applaud that whole effort that they put forward. And while we can support 90% of it, the 10% can be left aside and separate the MBTA zoning law on December 16th. Additionally, the House always wins. So if you have concerns about whether it means a yes vote means it's very difficult to develop Twin Lakes, it doesn't mean it's impossible. The state is the House. they can change the game where they want.
Correct. And just to touch on what Tom says, and I agree completely, the house always wins, right? If we say no too, I just got to make sure that everybody is okay, that it could very well mean we're using our Halifax tax dollars that we collected. We won't be using that for services here in the town. We will be using that to fight the state legally. And that will mean less services. So that, again, that's what I'm grappling with. It's the loss of grants. It's spending money on litigation. Those are the yin and the yang, Mel, that I'm dealing
I think
with.
that's a natural segue into my second question. If we were to vote no to the state and say, no, this does not work for the town of Halifax, does this give us some insulation from prevailing wage, et cetera, that we were able to send any bids for any municipal work out to private industry?
The statute is clear. I have a copy of it here if you want to see it, but the statute is clear that it itself imposes the penalty of those, what we call discretionary grants. And again, there's a little bit of undefined in all of that. But as far as all of the other state laws, like prevailing wage, that has nothing to do with this.
So
I mean, if you look at the statute, it's got nothing to do with
If
it.
we were not taking state grants, would we not be subject to prevailing wage, et cetera, on any private industry projects that we put out? For example, the senior center, if we were not to put that out in front of the state for state grants, et cetera, monies that we were required to match, and be subject to having a project manager appointed by the state, et cetera, would we be able to put those out to private industry and still be able to facilitate those projects on a municipal level?
That's a whole, those are whole different, they're not related.
No, that's chapter 30B, chapter 149, those are separate state laws. Any public funds, so any public, your funds are public, your tax dollars are considered public funds. So any funds that the town utilizes, we have to follow state procurement, which is chapter 30B for a building construction project, chapter 149. So whether we take state grants or not, we have to follow those state procurement laws.
Thank you.
Anyone else who has not spoken? In the back, yes? Yes, ma'am, please. Just tell us who you are and talk real close to that microphone because it doesn't pick up well.
Okay, hi, Michelle Kelly, 182 Holmes Street. I'm an abutter of Twin Lakes. Been there for 34 years. And I appreciate your answering the question that I think the gentleman left already, saying that there's 5% of the total that is potentially buildable. What does that translate to in acreage?
About 9.7 acres.
And how many houses per, how many, when you talked about density, how many potential homes could fit in that acreage?
So it would be 15 units per acre, so it was the 135.
And may I ask, do we know who owns that property now?
I just know it as the Halifax Garden Company.
It's owned in some sort of real estate trust, I don't know who.
Does anybody in the room know?
You can look it up on the assessor's database, but we didn't, that wasn't taken into consideration when we.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else who has not spoken? Yes, sir. Just again, tell us who you are and come close.
John Firth, 8 Ash Road. There ain't many old timers here anymore that know the town, and Halifax has a very high water table. And it's been proven in the past that the town lets people build on wetlands. Elm Street, all the houses on the right-hand side going into Hanson are 4 feet higher than the road because it's built on wetlands. Riley Auto Parts is built on wetlands. Dunkin' Donuts is just built on wetlands, and every time it rains out, there's a huge lake in front of the place. So if we rezone this, they will build on those wetlands. They'll fill it in, they'll make it higher, and they'll build as much as they can out there. You guys let it happen before, the guys before you let it happen. So, just
Okay,
tell the
thank you.
state it's not gonna happen.
Thank you. Anyone else who has not spoken? Joe, I think Joe had something, he was not, we cut him off, so.
My questions were answered.
Okay, thank you.
But the wetlands is an issue because.
Joe, because it's all being recorded,
They won't be able to hear you, Joe.
Just like the gentleman just said about the wetlands, that they would build on it, they'd raise it, and I think they have to, whatever wetlands they take, they have to put aside some other wetlands, is the way I understand it. But again, the new zoning that they will have is, they don't have to follow any of our bylaws.
they do.
No. No, the state, in that area that you're putting up for zoning, they don't follow Halifax's bylaws.
Why don't I ask town council just to explain that maybe?
If I understand your question, the only thing that this proposed bylaw would do would be to create an overlay zoning district. It wouldn't have any effect on the obligation to comply with other town bylaws.
They don't have an obligation.
They would still have to comply with other town bylaws.
That's not the way I read it in the law. Have you read that whole package?
Yeah, I've read it, yeah. They would still have to comply with other town bylaws.
They have to, with the setbacks and everything?
Well, this
separate
has
ones in
its
that
own setbacks proposed.
That's what I'm saying.
In-
It has its own rules and regulations within it.
Well, the ones that are specifically dealt with in this overlay district, such as lot area and setbacks, they're stated in the proposed overlay district bylaw.
Okay. All right, that's it for me. I'm still a little bit concerned about where you're saying 25% and 15%, because if you look at North Reading, has almost 6,000 people, they're at 750. We're at 3,000, we're still at 750. So I think there's a little, it's vague. And again, it's not a law that fits one shoe fits all.
Granted, and again, I can't say it enough, I don't think it's a good law, I think there's a lot of problems with it. And that's, but what we are suggesting is that we can be in compliance by doing this one zoning change, and it's not going to add the 750 or whatever because of all the reasons we talked about.
I've negotiated for Local 369, and sometimes you just have to stand into it and take it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else who has not yet spoken? All right, yes, in the back.
Amy Troop, 10 Hillside Ave. My question is for the current rep. I would love to know what bill number that is.
As I mentioned, it's being drafted and will be filed in January.
Conveniently. So
It's convenient, and I'd be happy to share that information with you.
please email
I
that to
would.
me.
I would happy
Because I
to.
would think that maybe you would have mentioned that in the debate, or I think that you would have mentioned it tonight previously to seeing that this whole entire town is standing up versus you and versus the MBTA housing.
No, I'm glad that I got to hear
wait,
everybody's
wait,
information tonight.
But, so you don't have a bill number, is that correct?
Ladies, I don't want to,
John,
let's try to keep
we're
this,
done.
let's try to keep this.
We're done, I don't need that.
Let's try to keep this.
My next is to Senator Brady. Senator Brady, do you recall the time that I came to the Halifax Senior Center and sat down and talked to you about our problems with MBTA housing and a senior overlay district? And I believe it was either May or June.
Yes, I remember you discussing things with me that day.
Right. So this was specifically about this. So I think earlier tonight you stated that you had never heard from any of these towns about that, but you actually have.
Well, I apologize if I remember you discussing things with me because I was meeting with seniors as well.
Yeah.
And
We had an hour-and-a-half conversation, and you seemed pretty understanding about the fact that our town was in problems about it. And I also would state the same for our rep. I've sat with her, I've made meetings, and I've asked her to read subdivision control and go over certain things, and she has done zero.
Anyone else who has not yet spoken? All right. Yes, sir. Yes, please.
Just a couple of, first of all, I appreciate everybody on the board telling us where they stand, because we all got to vote down the road, and we want to know that, okay? Because it's critical, because of leadership. I'm ex-military, and tell you, you got to take a stand. You got to make a decision to do something and not go in the middle. The issue here is we all know it's wrong. We all know the governor came down heavy-handed on all of us, okay? And she's smiling up there right now because she thinks she's got enough power up there to do this. So the issue is that might change. So the issue to me is, have we investigated our legal avenues here with other towns and marketing team, so that, because this is political, so the issue is here to make sure that we get out nationally and locally about the little town that could, okay? Because we make sure the governor in time of election is going to have to fight a lot of people on this issue. But people are pissed. And it's because you're telling us what to do. You didn't come here and ask. You didn't do that. You come in, you're going to do this because I'm big and bad. Well, so aren't we. And the issue is on this is that we want to make sure that everybody on here investigates our legal options now. Love it to be Thomas that does that because he's in favor of this, okay? And that would make sense. And the issue is find out from a marketing team. We go national on the political stage here because more towns are going to join as the word's getting out. And hopefully, on our representatives, so don't play the Democrat wheel here, get in there and fight for the town that you represent because you got more connections than probably most with the governor's office. So you need to fight for this because it's not right for this town. It's too big, and you need to stand up for it. So that's all I got to say, and thank you for taking us.
Thank you. Yep, all right. Anyone else who has not yet spoken? All right, so, okay.
David Masio, 16 10th Ave. Two questions. We're looking for, we're at risk for non-compliance for this grant for $1 million to redesign and construct an intersection of Route 58 and 106.
That's one thing, yeah.
What did we just do to it? We just paid it.
We didn't redesign it. The redesigning has.
What did we redesign it for? We just spent
Because
a bunch of money.
there's significant.
Stop.
Okay, you asked a question, so I'm answering your question.
Excuse me, let me talk.
Okay.
We just spent a bunch of money having the road reclaimed and resurfaced, and we're still having TL Edwards come out and top it, correct?
That is correct, yes.
So what do we need to do this for?
Because we've heard from the residents of the town that they are concerned with all the traffic in that area and that the intersection needs to be redesigned.
Wait, can you say that louder?
I'm not going to play the game with you.
Come on.
Okay. Sorry. All right, you're right, sorry. Now, last question. Senator, Kathy, can you explain to us what the Low-Income Housing Act, what type of housing, what kind of people we're looking to put into it? Do I qualify, by your opinion, would I be able to qualify for that low-income housing?
So this is not low-income housing?
This is not.
No.
This is not 40B. This is a separate issue altogether. This is the MBTA housing. You can, and actually, if you zoned a property that was in compliance with this, and the developers wanted to put in $1 million condos, there's no prohibition against that, and it's got nothing to do with the 40B. So, all right, so anyone else who hasn't spoken, or, all right, you in the back there, you want, all right. I mean, it is getting late, so if we've already gone through this, we don't need to keep going, but.
Just a quick statement, Eric
Thank you.
Messina again from Plymouth.
Guys, please, I can't hear, please.
A few hundred years ago, a couple patriots threw some tea in the water. That was non-compliance with the Stamp Act. What we need is some non-compliance with this ridiculous law. We just need a few patriots to stand up and fight. It's non-compliance. You're not going to give a couple grants? This is a joke. We're not facing like a firing squad. These patriots.
So the whole point here is so that the town, which gets to vote on this, not us, the town does, has all of the information to make that decision. If the town decides to, if the town agrees with you, that's what we'll deal with. If the town doesn't agree with you, then then that's what we'll deal with. That's all.
Just
it is.
making a statement. Be patriots.
Thank you. All right. Got one more here. Go ahead.
Mr. Bruno, you said highway and school are not affected as far as the funding goes, correct?
Say again? Highway?
As far as removal of funding, highways and schools are not affected.
No. Well, to be...
State aid, as part of the annual budget, for the state budget that's approved, would not be affected. Chapter 70, Chapter 90, other discretionary grants that could go to the schools or to the highway department could be in jeopardy, but not the budget, the state budget, the state aid, Chapter 70, Chapter 90, correct?
And I only asked because the gentleman from the state, and he emphasized, said all funding.
No.
He said that. You said that.
No,
I
I don't-
wrote it down.
Well, first of all, I'm not from the state. If I did, I might have more money. But the discretionary grant. So there's a long list here of sort of the ones that have been released so far. I suppose the asterisk here would be there could potentially be more grants at risk later that aren't identified here. So those would be discretionary funding that I don't have the answer today in terms of like what that could be.
Just because you said all.
All discretionary grants.
Okay.
Yes, because they're discretionary.
Those state aid, those aren't discretionary. The legislature passes the state budget. There's no discretion in that. They say Halifax is going to get X amount of dollars. There isn't discretion. Now, they also pass grant programs such as these that say we're going to give $10 million towards the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness grant. And then that agency has discretion in distributing those. So that's where the discretion could come.
Thank you.
Okay.
As a regional school district, would we automatically be disqualified from any discretionary funds if we were to, as a town, collectively say no to this program? Would that automatically disqualify us from any regional programs that we are currently enrolled in?
We don't have a question to that at this point. I don't believe so, but again, we don't have an answer to that.
Okay, looks like we've pretty much run the course here. Everybody's just about left. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for paying attention. You will get to vote on this in December, and whatever decision the town makes, we'll live with. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.